This hearing will come to order, and this morning we look at the role of the United Nations and we look at the role of the U.S. there with Ambassador Samantha Power. She has spent 2 years as the U.S. Permanent Representative to the UN, and the Ambassador has approached her job with great energy, great determination, perhaps best shown during last year's Ebola crisis in West Africa. And in that case, the administration and Congress worked together to contain Ebola and to save lives. Ambassador, thank you for those efforts. Thank you for joining us today. And the Ambassador's testimony comes at an important time. If a final Iran nuclear agreement is reached, and the deadline is in 2 weeks, then the Security Council will be expected to remove international sanctions while preserving the ability to react to Iranian cheating. And given all we know about the history of Iran's nuclear program, cheating should be expected. The committee wants to know how, in a case of cheating, a proposed sanctions snapback process would work. We know for sure that Russia and China wouldn't make this easy. And I've never known any UN process described as taking place in a snap. Last week's revelation by a panel of UN experts that there has been not a single report of Iran violating the UN arms embargo not only lacks any credibility, but calls into serious question the chances of the UN snapping back any sanctions. The committee is disturbed to watch the UN's continuing anti-Israel bias, especially in the Human Rights Council. More disturbing is that the Obama administration seems to be on the brink of discarding decades of bipartisan support of Israel against the UN onslaught. President Obama has raised the dramatic step of allowing the Security Council to impose conditions related to a two-state solution rather than supporting negotiations between the parties themselves. Ambassador, as Ranking Member Engel and I wrote to you the other month, an imposed plan will not get us closer to peace. Nearby, Syrians are being slaughtered before the world's eyes. 2 years ago, the United Nations called the crisis in Syria the worst humanitarian disaster since the Rwandan genocide. Yet despite several UN resolutions, the Assad regime continues its indiscriminate barrel bombing and chemical weapons attacks. Those responsible for these war crimes must be held accountable. Ambassador, you have said this to your credit, but when will that accountability come? The committee hears testimony tomorrow from some of the brave Syrians who have appeared in front of the Security Council to share their stories of responding to Assad's abhorrent attacks, including chemical attacks. Elsewhere, religious minorities are under attack. Unable to claim citizenship in Burma or elsewhere, many have called the Rohingyas the most persecuted minority in the world. Burma's persecution has led thousands to desperately flee to overloaded boats. Many are rightly bothered by the United Nations' poor track record protecting Rohingyas. Young Rohingya Muslim girls can think that they are finding safe haven, but end up being trafficked, being sexually exploited, being led into a lifetime of misery. United Nations peacekeeping, by the way, despite many shortcomings, has managed to protect innocent civilians and minorities. In recent years, the missions in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Mali, and South Sudan have saved lives. The committee wants to continue working with the Ambassador to see that these missions are appropriately supported, and we hope that something can be done for the Rohingya people. And that's easier if failing missions, some decades old, are closed and the horrendous sexual abuses are tackled head-on. UN reform shouldn't be limited to peacekeeping. This summer, when the UN scale of assessments is reviewed, I trust the U.S. delegation will be working to spread the burden and give major donors greater say in management decisions. Ambassador Power, you will be wrestling with many critical issues in the coming months. To say you have a difficult and even hostile environment at the UN is an understatement. But you do not appear to be one to shy away from a challenge. I look forward to continue to work with you on these pressing matters. We thank you again for being with us today, and I will now turn to Mr. Elliott Engel, the ranking member of New York, for his opening statement.